thinking he was dead. No, I mean, it's not just that they thought. I mean, he was. It was just thinking that now he's over and done. But it's like not in God's mind yet. The funny part is you go back to Acts 9 where we kind of started looking at Paul here several months ago. You remember when Ananias was saying, "Oh, God, you don't want me to go to him. He kills Christians." God says, "I want you to go to him, and I want you to give him his sight back, and I want you to tell him." And God told Ananias, he said, "I'm going to tell him and show him how much he must suffer for me." This is a part of it. Not because God doesn't like Paul, not because, well, I'm going to get even for you doing other things. It's not that at all. It's just because you've got the faith that I can demonstrate my love and strength through and your message, and I'll back it up with not only signs and wonders you can do for others, but signs and wonders when you come back from the dead. And that's what he did. After the disciples had gathered around him, he got up and went back into the city. What? Now, don't take too lightly the disciples gathering around. I was privileged a year and a half ago to have the disciples gather around and pray for me. Many of you have prayed for me, but I mean, it was that Wednesday evening when people circled in and everybody could put their hand on did, and they prayed. I think that's what happened here. I think that's the picture of gathering around. It wasn't to sing Kumbaya. It might have been about amazing grace, but I think it was also about the true believer saying, "God, is this your will?" "Not yet." And he gets up. But then the amazing thing, and it's as equally amazing as this guy that never had walked, the man that's dead, to rise back up. But even more amazing, what's supernatural then, is to have the courage and the desire to go right back to the same place that had just thrown rocks at you. I've been hit by a rock before. I don't want 100 hits like that, let alone at one time. They hurt. Sticks and stones can break your bones. And Paul gets up. I have no idea but what I would presume, the bruising and everything that way. But the amazing thing is, he walks. It didn't break his leg, or they were healed. And he goes back in because he cares, not to get even. Isn't that phenomenal? That's a transformed heart. That's a jar of clay housing the Spirit and the love of God. That much like the woman that anointed Jesus and poured out the ointment upon him and it filled the room, Paul now is this sacrifice, getting back up and saying, "I want to tell you about my Jesus." He didn't bring the disciples with him with clubs and spears and everything else. No, it was just he came back up, went back into the city so they would see, and not only that he was back, but that they would see with no vengeance. Because what he had told them was still true. And the next day, he and Barnabas left for Derbe. Run out of the town scared? Not at all. They felt like God had left the message, and now the best thing they could do was to go on. But they didn't leave from out here after being stoned. They left after they went back in, and they still shared with the people. That's the picture that we need to have of ourselves with God. I'll never give up. I will never give up. That's why Matthew 10 that we looked at, and Matthew 24 a couple weeks ago, stand firm to the end and you will be saved. Standing firm isn't about just standing there. It's about resolution inside that says, I just want to present Jesus Christ so that every man can know him. And as God writes us into these dramas and these tight spots of life, even life and death situations, that we go, whatever, our God reigns. I believe. Not I believe in him, I just believe God. He'll do whatever needs to be done. I believe that these things can just lighten momentary troubles. But man, I've got a glory that far outweighs them. That's your choice. Which Christianity you want? The worldly kind of Christianity that, man, God's good to you and you're good to him? Or the true kind that says God's good no matter what you think's happening. Don't look at circumstances. Just keep your eyes on heaven. If you will, let's stand as Henry comes up. Father and God, today, might we respond to you? And Lord, if it needs to be public, may we not back away. Might we respond in the way that you, God, would want us to. If it's with tears, let it be with tears.